small chorus book that we use, and there's a chorus that says, when he calls me, I will answer. When he calls me, I will answer. When he calls me, I will answer. I will be somewhere listening for my name. And then the other verse says, with a glad heart, I will answer. With a glad heart, I will answer. With a glad heart. It repeats, I will answer. I'll be somewhere listening for my name. Samuel was listening. And each time he was called, he did not just answer and lie there. He got up. And he went to the person that he thought was calling him. And his response was, here I am. We are living in a modern society, and there are many vernaculars, and also there are different ways of expression. And so, you call someone and say, yo, what's up? How are you doing? Hey. And we have different ways of addressing one another. Sometimes you're looking at the TV, and in the script is a, hey dog. What's up, dog? And they have all sort of expression. I do not know how endearing it is to call someone a dog, but apparently it can be. It can be endearing. And oh, hey dude, what's up, bro? Do you know who is Tracy Lauren Morrow? Do you know who is Tracy Lauren Morrow? Anybody here? Do you know whose name is that? Okay, I tell you. It's Ice-T. Ice-T, you heard of Ice-T, right? Yeah, that's his name. Tracy. But you don't know that because no one calls him that. They call him Ice-T. He's a rapper, he's a movie star, and yet you don't know his name. Eh? His name is not Ice-T. That's just the name that he's called. Okay, how about O'Shea Jackson? O'Shea Jackson. Do you know anybody by the name of O'Shea Jackson? Do you know who's that? Okay, I tell you. His name is Ice Cube. Yeah, they call him Ice Cube, and that's what. I don't know if you can find their pictures on the internet there, but he's called Ice Cube. All right, he's also a rapper, songwriter, movie star. Yeah. Okay. And let me give you one more. Do you know whose name is Calvin Cardoza Brothers? Calvin Cardoza Brothers. Do you know who's that? No? Nobody? Okay. Well, they call him Snoop Dogg. Yeah? You know who's Snoop Dogg right now, right? Yes. People, you're being called. There are people who are called by other names, and they have adopted and they have accepted these names, but it's not their real name. All right, it's not their real name, but they answer to Ice-T, Ice Cube, and Snoop Dogg. What is the name that you answer to? That's the question this morning. Okay. Let me give you one more. Do you know, or have you ever heard of Joaquin Guzman? Anybody? Joaquin Guzman? Okay, have you ever heard of El Chapo? No, you haven't heard of El Chapo. Oh, well, okay, that's a new one. Okay, he's an infamous drug lord. Okay, he is in somewhere in America, in prison, and so the point that I'm making, that there are people who are called by a certain name, and they answer to these names. Okay? And God says to his people, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and purpose to seek my face, then I will hear from heaven and I will heal their land. We are called by God's name. And God said, if my people who are called by my name. But the question I want to ask you this morning, do you answer to that name? Or if someone calls you by that name, would you wonder if this person, are you calling me? Are you talking to me? Do you answer, or do you don't hear, or you do not hear? Sometimes people will call you derogatory names. In the Bible, the scribes and the Pharisees, they called Jesus a glutton, intended to be that he was a greedy person. He loves to eat. They called him a wine bibber. He likes to drink. They called him Beelzebub. They called him Satan. These names were intended to be derogative. They were intended to demean. They were intended to disparage Jesus. But to be fair, Jesus called them names too. Jesus called them fools. He called them vipers. He called them whitewashed sepulchres, among other names. I do not know if they answered to those names, but they were quite offended. When many of you are in university, do they still have roll call in your university? Yes, they have roll call. And how do you answer? Huh? Yo? Yeah, what's the what the answer? Your answer? Here. In other words, here I am. Or present. In other words, here I am. And I'm asking you the question this morning, when the Lord calls you, how do you answer? Because sometimes we sing songs and we do not really mean what we sing. We just sing the words, but we do not really apply the words to ourselves or to our hearts. When God calls, he calls you by your name. He will not say, yo. He will call you Judith. How would you answer? Huh? How would you answer? That's the question. How will you answer when the Lord calls? When God calls, He calls you for a purpose. He calls you for a reason. And as I have mentioned many times before, many of us are here and we think that we are here by our own volition. We are here by our own intelligence. We are here by on our own. But the Lord, guys, I'm told that when you seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, all these things shall be added unto you. I'm told that we must trust in the Lord with all our heart and lean not unto our own understanding. In all our ways we should acknowledge him, and he will do what? He will direct your path. So yes, you may be intelligent, but there is the unmoved mover who directs and who guides you. And we must be able to understand and acknowledge his presence. You know, sometimes when we study the Bible, we have to look at the stories from all the different angles. In Daniel, when they were taken into exile, do you think God had something to do with that? Yeah? Did you think that God had something to do with Daniel going into exile? Yes or no? Yeah. It was predicted. It was predicted that Israel will go into exile into Babylon. He didn't tell them when, but it was a time, it was an appointed time when they will go into exile. And they were invaded, they were held captive, and they went into exile. But when Daniel and his friends, before Daniel and his friends got there, they purposed in their mind to keep God's command. There's a song, it reminds me of a song, standing by the purpose true, healing God's command, or heeding God's command. Honor them, the faithful few that join the Daniel band. Dare to be a Daniel. Dare to stand alone. Dare to have a purpose form. And dare to make it known. Dare you. You know, sometimes we like to hide in the crowd. Yeah? You know, one of the things I've learned that when you are noted, the people who are noted in the Bible are not people who hid in the crowd. You see, the people who are noted in the Bible, they didn't went out with the purpose to be famous. They were standing by the principles that they were taught. They were standing by the principles that they knew to be right. And they were rewarded for trusting in God. They didn't hide in the crowd. If Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego hid in the crowd, we would not have been talking about them. But they did not. They decided that we are going to stand. Do you think that they were the only Jew there? I doubt it. I doubt that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were the only Jews standing in that vast crowd on the plain of Dura. There were others, but they were hiding in the crowd. They bowed. But it took these three Hebrew boys to say, we will not bow. We will not give in. We will not entertain the thought of dishonoring our God and bowing before this image. One thing I love this story. You see, this story, it has many elements to it. And one of the elements that stood out to me is that when the news got to Nebuchadnezzar, a Babylonian king, who had an idea about the God of heaven, who probably had met the God of heaven, but ignored him. When he summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be brought to him, he said, and this is where I'm impressed with his judgeship as a king. You see, in those days, kings were judged. They were judged. They were like the Supreme Court. They give final judgments. And so when the boys were brought to him and accused of disrespecting and dishonoring the king didn't say, you know what, throw them in the fire, because they were already warned. What he did was ask this question: is it true? Is it true that you're not bowing down to my image? Is it true that you are disobeying me? Is it true that you are disrespecting me? He wanted the boys to tell him whether it was true or not. You see, this questioning, this interrogation, it could have been an opportunity for them to lie. Say, King, my knee is a kind of stiff. I cannot bow. Or somebody might say, oh, my back is hurting me at this time. I cannot bow down to your image. They could have made up all sort of excuses and say why they could not bow down. But they did not take the opportunity to escape, because they were prepared to die. So they said, "O King, live forever. We will not be careful in answering you in regards to this matter. We're not going to bow down. We're not. We believe the God that we serve is able to deliver us. But even if he does not, we're not going to bow down." The story tells us that these boys, or Nebuchadnezzar, he got really, really angry. So now you're disrespecting me to my face? And he said, heat up the fire. Heat it up. 10 times hotter, 7 times hotter. How hot you can get, just heat it up. You think I'm joking? And he didn't stop there. He said, I give you one more chance. Now the fire is piping hot. Now I'm still giving you one more chance. Play the music. Do you know how much pressure is that? The fire is probably making noise like a stove. And red hot. And now Nebuchadnezzar is saying, no, I'm asking you to play the drums, play the guitar, play the piano, whatever. Just play it and let me see whether you're going to bow or not. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they had already spoken. Their words were final, and they were determined that we are not going to bow down. How many of us would have already dropped to our knees? We would have dropped to our knees because our knees became weak. Because we are so scared to stand up that our knees perhaps would have given way on its own. But these boys were prepared to die. They were prepared to die, and also they were prepared to live. They say, the God that we serve is able. He is able to deliver us. But if not, okay, let his will be done. Many of us do not have such crucible to go through, but yet we are unable to trust in the Lord with all our hearts. We are faint. We faint. We do not trust him. Sometimes we sing, "Come every soul by sin oppressed, there is mercy with the Lord, and he will surely give you rest." By trusting in his word, only trust him. But we just sing it. We do not mean it. When the rubber hits the road, we seek to deliver ourselves. We seek to trust in our own power, in our own might. Come every soul. When he calls me, I will answer, you said. I'll be somewhere listening for my name. When God calls, what's your response? When God calls, or when he called Lazarus, he called Lazarus by his name. Lazarus was dead for 3 days already. And when Jesus asked, "Where did you lay him? Take me to him." And when he got to the tomb, Jesus commanded them to remove the stone. And Mary and Martha said, "Lord, he might be stinking already, you know." And Jesus was a little bit irritated. He said, didn't I tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of the Lord? Yeah, didn't I? And then when he opened his mouth, he spoke, and he just called, "Lazarus, come forth." And I believe when Lazarus heard his name, he got up and he hopped to the entrance of the tomb and he said, "Here I am." Yes. When he called Lazarus, Lazarus responded. He got up and he went. When God calls you, how do you answer? Do you make excuses, or do you answer, "Here I am"? when God called Jonah. The Bible tells us, now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, arise and go to Nineveh, cry against it, for their wickedness had come up again before me. And Jonah said, I will not go. God said, yes, you will go. Jonah said, no, I'm not going. And God said, yes, you will. And Jonah said, well, I will see about that. And the Bible tells us that Jonah tried to escape God. But you see, God's redemption was not only for the people of Nineveh. His redemption was also for Jonah. You see, Jonah had a miscued perception of God's mercy and God's salvation. And so what Jonah wanted was not what God wanted. Perhaps Jonah was praying for God to destroy these people. And here comes the opportunity for God to do such thing. And God is calling Jonah to redeem these people. And God says, Jonah, no, I don't think so. I will not go. When God calls, says one songwriter, we stand before the maker of the universe. When God calls, he lifts our spirit from all the realms of earth. We tremble at his bidding with our feet on holy ground. A consecrated summon to the throne room of his power. We bow and worship him alone when God calls. When God calls, oh, how he calls us in our sorrows and finds us in our pain to receive his gift of mercy, salvation in his name. In the year King Uzziah died, says Isaiah, I saw the Lord high and lifted up, and the throne and his train filled the temple. When Isaiah stood in the presence of God, he saw himself as nothing. He saw himself unworthy. He saw himself incapable of doing what the Lord requires. But you see, when God calls, he does not just call you, he equips you. When God calls, he sanctifies you. When God calls, he makes you holy. When Isaiah heard God's request, he said, I'm not ready for it. I'm not ready for it. I am not righteous enough. In verse 5, then said I, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. In verse 6, it says that then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with a tongue from off the altar. Then he laid it upon my lips, and said, Lo, this has touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin purged. In verse 8, Isaiah says, also I heard a voice saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? Then said I, Here I am. Send me. I will go. When God called Abraham, Abraham said, Here I am. When God called Jacob in a dream, Genesis chapter 31 and verse 11, he said, Here I am. When God called Moses from the burning bush, Exodus chapter 3 and verse 4, he said, Here I am. When God called Samuel 3 times, Samuel responded, Here I am. When God called Ananias to go and touch the eyes of Paul, then known Saul, his response was, Here I am. The cry still goes out to us today, here in 2022, here in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. Whom shall I send? Who will go for us? How would he respond? Would he respond, I ain't going? Or would he respond, Here I am, send me? May this be our response as we continue our Christian journey. God is requiring and God is calling each one of us for a purpose. How do we respond? It's not my problem. It's not my business. We all have a role and a part to play. How do you respond? Our closing hymn, let's sing our closing hymn. And as we bring this sermon to an end, when God calls you, would you really answer? Or how will you answer? This is the question that you must ask yourself. How would I respond to God's call? Hymn number 558. It's 358, 358. Let us stand as we sing our closing.